Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we've been working on our farming module out over here after making a discovery that we should not be net positive on our food on this greenhouse container with 2 Kerbals. This greenhouse container should be able to feed 1 Kerbal based on what we've discovered. So that seems absolutely fine then, and I'm confused why it seemed like it was working fine previously, but who knows? There was an update a day or two ago, actually, I think, to resource utils, and that may have made a change that caused this to be a necessity. So at this point, we need to get this guy on out there, right? And I'd like to make it be kind of like these out over here, where it's got some underslung canisters for specifically storing food. And we may want to have one that stores water, one that stores... These input carbon dioxide, don't they? Hang on, let's find out. What inputs and outputs do they have? Oh, there's a rational resources thing here. Has this always been here? Anyway, regardless, we're interested in this. Inputs, carbon dioxide, water, fertilizer, and electric charge. Okay, so the electric charge storage is here. I'm not concerned about that. Carbon dioxide, water, and fertilizer. That is noted. So, do we have any canisters that can do fertilizer? I don't think so. So, a water hex can is absolutely fine right down here, right? We can do something like that, although that's not placed exactly where I want it to be. Maybe more like here. And we'll snap that into position here in a moment. But a single water hex can would be good. We know that carbon dioxide is an input, so I would like to be able to store carbon dioxide here. I believe that is a waste hex can. Yeah? Yeah. So we'll need a large waste hex can. Okay, we'll just put that there for now. We'll get it more situated here in a moment. So we've got CO2, we've got water, and then fertilizer. So I don't think... searching does not work. Okay, good to know. And at this point, I don't think that there's a hex can for fertilizer. However, these do store 150 fertilizer each. And then this can store up to 50 fertilizer. And I believe if I remember correctly from our moon colony, our test colony that we did there, I believe that we discovered that the fertilizer containers are basically just these bad boys. And there's not really anywhere that we want to put one of these. Unless we were to stow it on the bottom over here. Where's our attachment point? There. It would have to go like this. And that's just not going to be a thing. We've got these greenhouse containers up here. I think it's fine. I think we're fine. Now, here's another question. This algae farm, how much fertilizer does it actually produce compared to our consumption here? That's something that we need to ask. So the algae farm is in here somewhere. It's this guy. So it outputs 0.18 fertilizer per day. Okay. It inputs waste or an electric charge, and it outputs fertilizer. So that is noted. The waste, of course, is produced by our Kerbals. The ore is mined, and then the electric charge is from our solar panels. So that is fine. But 0.18 per day fertilizer. Now we need to figure out what our consumption is. So this consumes 0.06 per day. Okay. So in theory, each algae farm can support 3 greenhouse containers. So these 3 are supported. These planetary greenhouses almost certainly are not supported at this time. How much do they consume? 0.36 per day. So each of these should take 2 algae farms to support it. Okay. So, with that in mind, I'm thinking that we're going to drop the greenhouse containers that are here. If we just put algae farms here, then that would not be ideal, right? So this algae farm can support 3 greenhouse containers, and then each planetary greenhouse is going to need 2 algae farms. Can we just search algae? That would be very convenient. No, it doesn't work. I'm wondering if there's any larger sized algae farms. So that's something that we should be asking. Life support container, waste products container. I'm looking for things like this guy, right? So that's an inline water drill, hydrogen container. There is that algae farm there, but that's basically all we've got. Okay, so this is our only real source of fertilizer that we know of. Is there any other way to make fertilizer? Not that I know of. So, that means that we're going to need 2 of these for each farming module, right? These do not need to be worked, and these do need to be worked. I don't know if this has any seats for Kerbals. We do want to bring along at least a couple of Kerbals for this, so that's going to be interesting. But we're going to need algae farms, so I'm going to put in another one. Why is it moving that vertically? I want it out over here. Okay, and then I'm going to duplicate this one, and once again, that's being moved vertically. Weird. It's like there's something here, but there's not. Wild. Okay, I'm going to put that right there for now, and we're going to have to get those put in via some other means. So that is what we're going to need to get our planetary greenhouses operational here. But we're still going to have enough fertilizer here for 2 additional greenhouse containers. So if we were to have those greenhouse containers hypothetically placed there, we'd have to have some sort of an arrangement that would allow us to place this here. Okay. I'm just thinking about what this is going to mean for our sky crane. Sure. This seems fine. So I'm going to put in some struts here, and not a cubic octagonal. I want a regular strut here. So this is going to be a modular girder segment, and we're going to attach that to the top attachment points here. I'm not going to surface attach it. I'm going to attach it to each of these attachment points, like that. And I'm going to have these be insulated because, like, in the head cannon, we can, like, move through these and interact with these farms or whatever. Obviously, that's not necessarily how it works in reality, but we can do a modular girder hub here and then a modular girder hub out over here. I'd like for this to be insulated as well, but, you know, that's not how this works. So we can put in a modular girder segment here, a modular girder segment here. And then this guy needs, it doesn't surface attach. It needs an attachment point. So we would need to have an attachment point there, and we do basically the same thing over here, right? But we can put in our greenhouse container here, like that, right on top of the modular girder hub. I kind of want to rotate this one to be going inward. The main problem, of course, is our sky crane is going to have to be very tall for this, and our center of mass is likely going to be pretty high here. I'm just thinking about what that's going to mean for our driving around. That's going to be interesting. So what we're going to need is some sort of an attachment point here, right? And then there's also the launch pad, which, of course, we can't really effectively move once it gets there. That's the main issue there. We're going to need a launch pad eventually, and that launch pad is going to be located somewhere. I don't know where we're going to put it, but we're going to need to put that somewhere eventually. What does this pylon do? Okay, it's got a pipe socket, allowing it to act as an extender. Gotcha. That's understood. So for the moment, we're not too concerned about that. The main problem with things like this ground base is that we don't... Well, it moves around when we warp. That's the issue, is it doesn't stay in place. It's very sad. to be sure. We are going to need to have a Clampatron docking port out over here to maintain modularity, so we'll do that. And then how do we want to have an upward-facing connector here? Well, we could have this be just like a cubic octagonal strut that sticks up like this, and then the algae farm can connect in like that, hypothetically. And I kind of don't hate that. So I'm going to duplicate this, and we're going to attach it to this attachment point, if we can get that attachment point to actually operate and not try to surface attach. There we go. More like that. And then this algae farm here, I'm going to rotate, not in those directions. And it's going to have to be rotated like this, mildly awkwardly, but that's okay. So now I'm going to ditch this, and we're going to grab this guy and this guy. I'm going to duplicate this one, and we're going to rotate it around. We're going to attach it right here. Now I'm going to grab this one, rotate it around, and it goes in right on that attachment point. Okay, so that gives us what we need in terms of fertilizer. It's probably not very stable, but we can run a strut connector directly. We can't surface attach it to the algae farm, but we can run the strut connector from this cubic octagonal strut, in theory, down over here. I don't know if this would actually connect. Yeah, it wouldn't. So we'd want to run it from like this strut connector down to the greenhouse itself. I'd like to have it be connected like over here, ideally. So we'll just do it from like here to here. Yeah, that works. And then we can run a strut from here to here, similarly. And then over on this side, we do it from here to right about there. And then from here to right about here. Then we need to do it on the other side as well. Unfortunately, we've got a bit of a positioning issue. We'll have to move this over. That's okay. So next we'll do from here to here for our strut. And then we'll do one from here to approximately here. That should do. And then from here to... That looks about right, but it didn't actually connect. Let me just rotate this. We'll look at it about here. There we go. This one's maybe a bit far out, but it doesn't really matter. We're just trying to make this relatively stable over here. Okay, so something kind of like that. Now, we've got the waste hex can and the water hex can. We don't have much for fertilizer storage, but that's okay. What we're looking for now is food storage for the rest of these. So that's going to be, that's water, oxygen, this one's food. Okay, so we'll just place this in right about here. We'll get these snapped into position later on. So let's get one here and then up here. They're going to clip together a little bit for now. That's okay. As I said, we're going to snap these together. So let's use the move tool, and let's have this be placed about there and about there. And using the move tool, we'll have it be placed about there, and yeah, that looks good. For the next one, we'll need to place it right in line, approximately here and approximately here. And then this guy will, of course, need to be placed in line as well. That's pretty close there. Although the rotation is off. Indeed it is. Does that matter for our purposes? Well, maybe. Yes. Let's go ahead and fix the rotation here. What I want to do is I want to make sure that we have a flat edge facing the ground, not a pointy edge. This is a hexagonal shape. So we want to make sure that the flat edges are facing the ground. So like that, like this. And they don't appear to be exactly centered in their origin, so that's, you know, mildly awkward. But we'll fix that. So we've got our move tool here. This is then going to need to be changed in its overall positioning. It's going to need to be moved to be about here. That one is pretty much in line. this one is pretty good as well in terms of its positioning. And then we'll need to change this one. And we are in absolute positioning mode at this moment, so yeah, we'll need to move this guy down. And that's pretty much in line, actually. Okay, and then this one comes on down a little bit. It needs to be moved to here, and then here, like that. Looks like we stick out a little bit on this end. Let's move them over 1 unit, like 1 snap point. So we're going to move each of them over by 1. And we stick out a little bit on this end, but I'm just hoping to make that be slightly more symmetrical. How's that? Yeah, that's more symmetrical. Okay, perfect. So something like this. Now, we're probably going to need to put these bad boys on. They've caused us problems. No doubt about that. That's absolutely true that they have caused us significant issues. They gotta go on. We need to have them in order to provide us locomotion on the surface to get it docked up. And it's the only way. At least for now. So we're just going to grab this. We'll detach them later, but we'll grab them, and can we not attach them to the greenhouse surface? We were able to attach them here. I'm surprised that we can't attach them to the greenhouse surface. Oh, we can, just up here. That's interesting. Okay, we can attach it here, which I want to do. We'll go ahead and put it there. And then we'll need to, of course, have one on the opposite side. So I want to grab this, and I want to see if we do this in mirror mode, with mirror symmetry on. That's not really what I wanted it to do. Okay, noted. So we'll just put this in right here. I want it to be basically as centered as we can, approximately there. And then we'll do the same thing over on the other side. So we'll need to get the camera in over here and rotate it like that, and have it be basically centered right there, approximately. That'll have to do. Okay, now then, we can do another one out at this end, which I would like to do, and then presumably we can do one more over here. And yes, there we go. We'll just do something like that. So now we'll need to do the same thing over here. Yes, this clips together, but for the moment, that's fine. These have been removed anyway, so that's okay. Let's go ahead and place this guy out over here, right there. And then one additional right over this direction, approximately there. This is not exactly the strut that we want, but honestly, it's kind of fine. That'll give us rigidity out over here anyway. This is still going to be bending all over. We're going to have to do some pretty major strutting here to get this to actually work. Now, our next problem is the sky crane. But let's go ahead and save this, and then I'm going to reroute this, and we're going to have the root part be like this micronode here. Okay, now I'm going to save this as the greenhouse module. Okay, we'll save that, but we need to get rid of everything out over here. It's all irrelevant. Okay, so there we go. This is our module, and it's going to be a problem. Let's take a look at where that center of mass is. This is going to be interesting. So that's a little problematic. I'm thinking maybe we bring another power node and have it right here at the same time. So if we were to reroute this and have the root part be here, and then in the place tool, we would grab this guy, rotate it around like this, and slap it in right here. Then we can grab this strut connector and connect that off over here. And this strut connector and connect that off over here. Now, we're still going to have major stability issues. But now the question is, what's that center of mass? That is much, much better for the center of mass. Okay. Yeah, I think this is the way we gotta go here. I mean, we know we have a power issue anyway, and the power issue is just going to get worse when we bring this out. So having additional power generation here, not the worst thing. The next question is, how clippy will this be? That's pretty clippy. So I'm wondering if we maybe want to elevate up these Gigantors a bit. So that would mean removing these docking ports here. Not the Gigantors. Put the Gigantors back, please. Removing these docking ports. Actually, now removing the Gigantors. And then duplicating the holding tanks. Like this. And then putting the Gigantors up top. We need to go into 8x symmetry. And this rotation is awful. Yeah, more like that. And then rotate these to be about like that. There we go. That's going to be much better in terms of clippage. And then we'll put the docking ports back here. Not that we really intend on docking... Wow, that was loud. Not that we really intend on docking anything to that, but yeah, something like that. Something is wrong here. Let's recalculate that center of mass. Okay, that's better. So you can see that raised our center of mass here, which is not good for us driving around on the surface. That'll make us more prone to tipping, which is something we're just gonna have to be aware of, and we're just going to have to deal with it. That's all there is to it. We're just gonna have to deal with it. Now, we're gonna have weak joints here and here, 1000%. I'm thinking that if we strutted like here to here, actually, this might not be too bad. And then if we strutted here to here and then here to here, but we're gonna have our sky crane be right here. So we need to bring in the sky crane. Let's go ahead and do that. The Duna colony contains locked or invalid parts. That's odd. Does the greenhouse module? No. This vessel has the following problems. There are no problems. Okay. I'm going to try loading this. It's fine. I'm going to resave it. It's still claiming it contains locked or invalid parts. Huh. Well, we're mostly just using this as reference anyway, so it should be okay. We'll go ahead and open up our greenhouse module. And we need to have our center of mass overlay. We know it's right down the middle there. So we need to open in a vehicle with a sky crane. So that's going to be like, sure, the fuel production module. That should be fine. I didn't mean to load it. I meant to bring it in. Okay, so I meant to merge it. Let's try that again. Fuel production module, merge. Okay, we just want to attach this somewhere. The game kind of froze on us. Hello? KSP? You good? Oh, it's trying to do 8x symmetry. Let's not do 8x symmetry. Okay. Yeah, attach it here. That's absolutely fine. So what we want to do now is we want to detach off our sky crane. And then I want to grab the root part of the fuel production module, which is the convertitron. So we'll get rid of that, and now we've got ourselves our sky crane here. But this sky crane is going to have to be pretty elevated, and we need to upgrade the module in here. But that's okay. So let's go ahead and grab ourselves a modular girder segment. In fact, we could even use a modular girder segment like XXL here. That might be a little too much. And this can't be... Oh, this can be insulated. Okay. So, yeah, we could do something kind of like this. We'd want to snap it into position here, so let's do that. There we go. That is now precisely centrally located, which should be the center of gravity here. Looks like our center of gravity is actually very, very, very slightly forward. So let's turn that snapping off, and let's just move this guy very, very, very slightly forward. So it needs to go a little further than that, about right here. This is probably due to the positioning of the wheels, or to the positioning of these cans. But that's fine. We can work with that. So we're going to want to jettison this whole part here, actually, aren't we? So that means that we're going to want to have a docking port, like right up over here. I want to turn snapping back on, and that docking port is going to end up going right there, in theory. How are we doing on alignment? That's really close. That should be close enough. Okay, then I'm going to attach this here, but I actually don't want this to be docked quite like this, so we're going to take that off. We're going to remove this docking port, and we're going to put this guy right here. Looks like we are good on our sky crane directionality, so our sky crane should be reasonably stable, although I don't love this strut. Let's put that in 4x symmetry, put in this strut here, and I'm just going to have it connect up slightly higher, like that. Now, we need to pop off our hemispherical fuel tank, we need to get our Probodovidine Octo 2, and we're going to upgrade that to a remote guidance unit, like this guy. Okay, we're going to need solar panels on this, and we determined we want to start putting those on the end, so we're going to do exactly that. This is going to be 1x6s, will be absolutely plenty. So we'll just place those right there. And then we'll need an antenna on this. Something like that. Okay. So there is our module that we're going to land. It's kind of nuts. It's quite a high center of gravity. And it's going to be wiggling all over the place. But that is a job for future me. It is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and next episode, we're going to design the lifting and the transit vehicle for this guy, and then we're going to strut it a lot. We're going to need to do struts from here to here. We're going to need to do struts from here to here. We're going to probably need to do some internal strutting here. We'll see where all of our weak joints are, but there's definitely going to be weak joints here and here. No doubt about that. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Dark Horse, Ethan Feldman, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge STL, Roarnaz, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.